She was on her knees in the third-floor hallway of the Elkhorn Grand at 5:47 inches the morning. No guests awake, no manager watching, no one to see the child asleep on the laundry cart beside her. The girl was 4. She was curled between 2 stacks of white towels with her shoes still on, because the daycare did not open for another 73 minutes, and there was nowhere else for her to be. A man in a dark suit walked past them toward the elevator. He did not look down. He did not see the child. He did not read the name tag pinned to the woman's uniform. He owned this hotel. He owned 26 others. 6 years ago, on a frozen mountain road in the worst blizzard Colorado had seen in a decade, this woman had pulled him from a wrecked car and kept him alive for 3 days in a cabin with no power and no signal. She did not know he owned the building she cleaned. He did not know she worked in it. Before we get into this story, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Ruby Montgomery had been cleaning rooms at the Elkhorn Grand for 14 months. She worked the morning shift, 5:30 to 2. Her clock did not run in hours. It ran in rooms. 14 rooms per day, 22 minutes per room if the guest had been reasonable, 35 if the guest had not. She did not think about the difference. She adjusted. She moved faster in the rooms that required it, and steadier in the rooms that allowed it. And either way, the cart moved down the hallway at the same pace because the pace was the only thing she controlled. She earned $14.80 an hour. Tips went into a shared pool divided among 23 housekeepers at the end of each pay period. Her share averaged $11 per week. She did not complain about the system. She did not have the time or the position to complain about anything. She weighed 119 pounds. The laundry cart she pushed weighed 47. She moved it across 3 floors every morning before most of the guests had opened their eyes. Lily was 4 years old. She had asthma. The inhaler cost $63 a month without insurance. Ruby did not have insurance. The hotel offered a plan to full-time employees who had completed 12 months of continuous service with no disciplinary actions on file. Ruby had completed 14 months. She had applied for the plan twice. The first application was denied because of a write-up she had received in her 3rd month for clocking in 9 minutes late on a morning when the bus had broken down on Colfax Avenue. The second application was still pending. It had been pending for 7 weeks. The county ran a subsidized daycare program 6 blocks from the hotel. It opened at 7:00 inches the morning. Ruby's shift started at 5:30. The 90 minutes between 5:30 and 7 were the 90 minutes that defined the architecture of Ruby's entire life. She could not afford private care for those 90 minutes. She could not leave Lily alone. She could not start her shift later because the rooms had to be finished before the 3 check-in wave, and 14 rooms at 22 minutes each left no margin for a late start. So, Lily came to work. She sat on the laundry cart between stacks of white towels and fitted sheets that smelled like industrial detergent. She had a coloring book and a box of 8 colored pencils that was missing the red and the yellow. She never asked about the missing colors. She never asked about anything during those 90 minutes. She sat. She colored. She slept. Lily had learned to sleep through the sound of a vacuum cleaner the way most children learn to sleep through rain. It was not a skill a 4-year-old should need. Greg Tanner was the shift manager. He knew about Lily. He had known since the 2nd week. He did not report it because reporting it would mean replacing Ruby, and replacing Ruby would mean training someone new, and training someone new would cost him 3 weeks of reduced floor coverage. And Greg Tanner did not like problems that created more problems. He told Ruby once, standing in the supply closet doorway while she loaded her cart at 5:25 inches the morning, Lily asleep on the bottom shelf between the bleach bottles and the pillow protectors. He said it without looking at the child. He said it the way supervisors say things they want you to remember without putting them in writing. "I'm doing you a favor letting the kids stay. Don't make me regret it." Ruby did not respond. She finished loading the cart. She pushed it toward the service elevator. Lily did not wake up. Ruby had heard sentences like that before. She knew what they meant. They meant the ground you were standing on belonged to someone else, and they could move it whenever they wanted, and the only thing keeping it still was their decision not to move it yet. She cleaned 14 rooms that day. She cleaned 14 rooms every day. She cleaned the marble countertops in the bathrooms that cost more per square foot than her monthly rent. She made beds with sheets that had a thread count higher than her credit score. She folded towels into shapes the guests would unfold in seconds and never think about again. She replaced the complimentary soaps and the bottled water and the handwritten welcome cards that said, "We're so glad you're here," in cursive on cream-colored stock, and she set them on pillows in rooms where she was not allowed to sit down. She was not glad to be here. She was here because here was where the $14.80 was. The penthouse suite on the 11th floor of the Elkhorn Grand was 1,400 square feet. It had a gas fireplace that turned on with a remote. It had a bathroom with heated floors and a rain shower with 6 heads and a tub carved from a single piece of Colorado granite that weighed more than Ruby and Lily and the laundry cart combined. The thermostat was set to 71 degrees. The coffee had been brewed before the guest arrived. The bathrobe hanging on the door was Turkish terry, 14 ounces per square yard. It was heavier than the coat Ruby wore to work in January. Vance Rutherford had checked in the night before under the name V. Allen. He did this at every property. No advance notice to the general manager. No entourage. No requests. He arrived like any guest, and he watched the way any guest watches, except he was not watching for comfort. He was watching for margin. He owned 27 properties across 9 states. 4,200 employees. The Rutherford Hospitality Group generated $1.2 billion in annual revenue. He knew the name of every general manager in the portfolio. He knew their occupancy rates and their RevPAR and their net operating income broken down by quarter. He could tell you the average length of stay at any of his resorts within a tenth of a night. He could not tell you the name of a single housekeeper. He did not know how many worked at the Elkhorn Grand. He knew the number on the budget line, 23. That was the head count. Head count was the word his CFO used, and it was the word Vance used because the word did what it was designed to do. It counted heads. It did not name them. It did not learn that one of them brought her daughter to work every morning because the daycare did not open until 7 and her shift started at 5:30. It did not know that one of those heads weighed 119 pounds and pushed a 4-7-pound cart up 3 floors before sunrise. Vance stood at the window of the penthouse suite and looked out at the mountains. The peaks were white. The sky was the kind of blue that exists only at altitude, thin and sharp, and so clean it looked like it had never been touched. He had built his company on this view. Every resort, every lodge, every boutique hotel in the portfolio was positioned to sell a version of this exact feeling. The feeling of being above. In a desk drawer at his office in Denver, there was a pair of leather gloves, brown, worn at the fingers. The left one had the initials FM stamped on the inside of the wrist strap in letters, so small you would miss them if you were not looking. He was not looking. He had not looked at the gloves in 4 years. He kept them because throwing them away felt wrong in a way he could not explain, and keeping them required no explanation because no one asked about them, and he did not ask himself. He remembered a cabin. He remembered cold. He remembered hands pulling him through snow. He remembered a voice that was calm in the way calm sounds, when it is not performance but practice. He did not remember the name of the person the voice belonged to. He had told himself he would go back. He had not gone back. That was 6 years ago. 6 years before the morning, Ruby was on her knees in the 3rd-floor hallway, and Vance was standing at the penthouse window looking at mountains. A blizzard had come down on the Front Range of Colorado, with a force the National Weather Service later classified as a once-in-14-year event. 43 inches of snow in 19 hours. Wind gusts measured at 74 miles per hour at the peak stations. Roads closed across 3 counties. Power lines went down in sequence, west to east, like dominoes made of wood and wire that had not been replaced since the 1980s. Ruby was 21. She lived with her father, Frank Montgomery, in a cabin on County Road 12, 7 miles from the nearest town. The cabin had 2 rooms, a wood stove, a generator that worked when the temperature stayed above -5, and a view of the valley that, in summer, looked like the inside of a postcard, and in winter looked like the surface of a planet that had decided it did not want visitors. Frank was a ski equipment maintenance technician. He serviced lifts and grooming machines at a resort 14 miles north. Seasonal work, $18.50 an hour from November through April. Nothing from May through October except the odd repair job and whatever he could make selling firewood to vacation cabins down the road. No insurance, no retirement, no safety net of any kind except the one he had built with his own hands, which was the cabin and the wood stove and the snowmobile in the shed, and a daughter who knew how to use all three. He had taught Ruby to drive the snowmobile when she was 13. He had taught her to dress a wound when she was 14. He had taught her to read the weather by watching the way snow moved against the tree line, not the forecast, because the forecast came through a radio that did not always work, and the tree line was always there, he told her once, standing in the kitchen doorway with his boots still on and snow melting onto the floor. You don't need a hospital to keep someone alive. You need hands that don't shake. Ruby's hands did not shake. Not at 14. Not at 21. Not on the night she heard the sound of metal folding against rocks somewhere down County Road 12, past the bend, where the road dropped 200 feet in a quarter mile, and the guardrail had been missing since a mudslide took it out the spring before. She put on her father's coat. She pulled on his gloves, the brown leather ones with the initials FM on the wrist strap. She started the snowmobile. She rode 2.3 miles in wind that made the headlight useless, and the cold so dense it felt solid against her face, like pressing into a wall made of air that did not want her to pass through it. She found the car in the ditch. A black SUV, rented, the kind with tinted windows and heated seats and a navigation system that had told its driver the road was passable because the navigation system did not know about the missing guardrail. The driver was still inside. His left shoulder was dislocated or broken. She could not tell which. His hands were bare. His fingers had already begun to turn the color that meant the cold had moved past discomfort and into damage. She pulled him out. He was heavier than she was. She got him onto the snowmobile and drove back to the cabin, with his body leaning against her back and his arms around her waist because he could not hold on with his hands. She gave him the gloves, his hands inside her father's gloves on the ride back, her hands bare on the handlebars. She did not think about it. There was no time to think about it. Thinking was a luxury that belonged to people who were not 2.3 miles from shelter in -17 degrees. 3 days. No power, no cell signal, no road crew. She fed him canned beans heated on the wood stove. She bandaged his shoulder with strips torn from a bedsheet because the first aid kit had gauze for a cut, not for whatever had happened to the joint beneath his collarbone. She kept the fire going through 2 nights by feeding it every 90 minutes. She slept in intervals. She did not sleep well. She had not expected to. On the second night, he asked her name. She told him. He asked how long she had lived here. She said her whole life. He asked what she wanted. She did not answer. Not because she did not know what she wanted, because the question came from a world where wanting was separate from surviving, where a person could sit in a warm room and think about what they might like their life to become, and that world was not the one she lived in. In her world, wanting was not a category. Getting through the day was the category. Everything else was weather. On the 4th morning, the road was plowed. A county crew reached them by noon. An ambulance took the man to the hospital in Steamboat Springs. He told Ruby he would come back. He said it from the back of the ambulance, his shoulder in a sling, her father's gloves still on his hands. He did not come back. That was 6 years ago. The gloves were still in his drawer. The woman who gave them to him was 3 floors below him, on her knees, cleaning a bathroom in a hotel he owned. 2 years after the blizzard, Frank Montgomery was diagnosed with lung cancer. He had worked 23 years in equipment bays and maintenance sheds, breathing in diesel, particulate, and degreasing solvents, and the fine metallite dust that came off brake pads and cable fittings in enclosed spaces with ventilation systems that had not been updated since the facilities were built. The doctors at the clinic in Steamboat Springs used the word occupational. Frank used the word unlucky. Neither word changed the diagnosis. He died 11 months later. Ruby was 23. She was pregnant. The father of the child she was carrying had left 3 weeks before the diagnosis. Not with a fight. Not with a letter. He simply stopped answering his phone. And after enough time passed, Ruby stopped calling. And after more time passed, she stopped saying his name aloud, because saying it had started to feel like talking to a door that was never going to open. She did not erase him. She simply declined to carry someone who had declined to stay. Frank's medical bills totaled $28,400. The cabin sold for $34,000. The math was simple. $28,400 for the hospital, $4,200 for the copay on Lily's delivery at the county medical center, $1,400 remaining. That was what was left of 23 years of her father's work, and a lifetime of living in a cabin he had built with borrowed tools on land he had paid off one season at a time. Ruby moved to the city because the mountain had nothing left to offer a woman with a newborn daughter who had asthma. No pediatric pulmonologist within 40 miles. No daycare. No work between May and October. No family. No neighbors close enough to hear a child struggling to breathe at 2 inches the morning. She found an apartment, a studio, 480 square feet, $875 a month. She found a job, housekeeping at the Elkhorn Grand, a 5-star resort and spa in the Rutherford Hospitality Group portfolio, $14.80 an hour, 32 hours a week. No benefits for the first 12 months. She did not know who owned the hotel. She did not read the corporate filings or the investor reports or the framed mission statement in the employee break room that said, "Excellence through service," in gold letters above a photo of a man she had once dragged through snow on a snowmobile at 2 inches the morning. She did not recognize the photo. The man in it was wearing a suit. The man she had saved had been wearing a torn jacket and no gloves, and the expression of someone who had just discovered that money could not keep him warm. In the United States, approximately 1.7 million people work as hotel housekeepers. The median annual wage is $29,120. Roughly 40% do not receive employer-sponsored health insurance. Among housekeepers who are single mothers, the rate without insurance rises to 58%. The turnover rate in hotel housekeeping exceeds 70% annually, not because the workers are unreliable, because the work is designed to be replaceable. The system does not invest in retention because the system does not need to. There is always someone else who needs $14.80 an hour badly enough to push a 7-pound cart up 3 floors before dawn. Ruby was not a statistic. She was a woman who woke up every morning at 4:40 and solved the same equation with the same variables and the same answer, which was that the answer was not enough, but it was what existed. Her alarm went off at 4:40. She did not use a phone alarm. She used a battery-powered clock she had bought at a dollar store because her phone was 4 years old, and the battery died by 9 p.m., and she could not afford a new one, and she could not afford to oversleep. So, she bought a $3 clock and placed it on the floor beside the mattress where she and Lily slept. She dressed in the dark. She woke Lily without turning on the light because Lily slept better in the dark, and every minute of sleep was a minute Ruby was not willing to take from her. She dressed Lily by feel. The jacket first, then the shoes, then the hat, because it was November and the walk was 6 blocks, and Lily's lungs did not forgive cold air. They left the apartment at 5:05. They walked. Ruby did not have a car. She had sold it 4 months ago to cover 3 months of Lily's medication at $63 per month, plus a $240 emergency room copay from the night in February when Lily stopped breathing at 14 inches the morning, and Ruby carried her 8 blocks to the nearest hospital because she no longer had a car, and an ambulance cost $1,200 and $1,200 was 6 weeks of groceries. They reached the hotel at 5:20. They entered through the employee door at the back of the building. Ruby placed Lily on the laundry cart. She handed her the coloring book and the pencils. 8 pencils in a box meant for 1 0. The red was gone. The yellow was gone. Lily colored skies in blue, and trees in green, and flowers in purple, and never once asked why she could not color a sunset. She had learned to be small in places that were not designed for children. She had learned it the way she learned everything, by watching her mother and understanding without being told that the world they moved through had rules she was expected to follow before she was old enough to be told what they were. Ruby ate lunch at 11, 30 inches the laundry room, half a sandwich she had made the night before. Bread, 1 slice of processed cheese, a thin layer of mustard. She ate it, standing up beside the folding table. She drank water from the utility sink. She did not eat in the employee cafeteria because the cafeteria charged $4.50 per meal, and $4.50 multiplied by 22 working days was $99 a month, and $99 was more than Lily's inhaler cost. She had done this math once. She did not do it again. She did not need to. The math stayed done. It stayed done the way a wall stays built. You do not rebuild it every day. You just live inside it. Her monthly income was $14.80, multiplied by 32 hours, multiplied by 4.3 weeks. That was $2,036 before taxes. After taxes, roughly $1,730. Rent was $875. Lily's medication was $63. Electricity and water were $110. Food was $320, and that was $320 for 2 people, which meant Ruby ate what Lily did not finish and called it enough. The bus pass was $72. That left $290 for everything else. For the shoes Lily outgrew every 4 months. For the winter coat Ruby had not replaced in 3 years. For the copay when Lily's breathing got bad enough for the ER. For the clock battery. For the colored pencils. For every single thing that the budget did not name and the world did not stop sending. She did not choose between rent and medicine. She chose between medicine this month and medicine next month. That was the only choice the math allowed. Lily stopped breathing at 3:11 on a Tuesday morning in November. Not fully. Not the kind of stopping that requires a machine to start again. The kind that narrows. The kind where the air coming in becomes a sound, a whistle through a passage that is closing the way a fist closes, slowly, deliberately, as if the body has decided to make a point about what it can take away whenever it wants. Ruby was awake. She was always awake when it happened. Not because she heard the first wheeze, because she had trained herself to sleep at the frequency of her daughter's breathing the way a sailor sleeps at the frequency of the sea. When the rhythm changed, she changed with it. She had the inhaler in Lily's mouth within 40 seconds. She counted. She always counted. 2 puffs. Wait, 2 more. Lily's chest was moving, but the sound was still wrong. Still tight. Still the sound of something being squeezed that should not be squeezed. Ruby made the decision at 3:14. She put Lily's coat on over her pajamas. She put her own coat on over nothing because she had been sleeping in a t-shirt and there was no time to change, and time was the only currency that mattered at 3. 14 inches the morning when your daughter's lungs were deciding whether to cooperate. They walked 9 blocks to the emergency room. The temperature was 23 degrees. Lily walked the first 4 blocks. Ruby carried her the last 5 because Lily's breathing had gotten worse and walking made it worse. And Ruby's arms were the one vehicle she still owned that did not require gas or insurance or a monthly payment. The ER admitted Lily at 3:38. They gave her a nebulizer treatment. They monitored her oxygen levels. They kept her until 10:15 inches the morning. Ruby sat in the chair beside the bed for 6 hours and watched the number on the monitor and did not close her eyes and did not eat and did not think about anything except the number. At 5:22 inches the morning, she called Greg Tanner. She told him Lily was in the emergency room. She told him she would be in by 11. Greg said fine. One word. Fine. She heard him say it. She would remember hearing him say it for a long time after it stopped mattering. Ruby arrived at the Elkhorn Grand at 11:15. She changed into her uniform in the locker room. She clipped her name tag to her chest. She had been at work for less than 4 minutes when Greg appeared in the doorway of the laundry room and told her to follow him to his office. The office was a small room behind the laundry bay. It had a desk, a computer, a scheduling board on the wall, and a window that looked out onto the loading dock. Greg sat behind the desk. Ruby stood. He did not offer her the chair. He told her she was being terminated. He used the word terminated, not fired, because terminated is the word managers use when they want the act to sound procedural instead of personal. The reason was pattern of unreliability. He had a printed sheet in front of him. 3 instances of tardiness in the past 6 months. 7 minutes on March 14th. 12 minutes on June 2nd. 4 minutes on September 19th. Total, 23 minutes. In 6 months. In 14 months of employment, 23 minutes. Ruby asked about this morning. She said she had called. She said he had said fine. Greg looked at the paper in front of him instead of at her. He said there was no record of approved leave. He said this morning was classified as a no-show. He said the decision was consistent with company policy regarding attendance standards. Ruby looked at the scheduling board on the wall behind him. Thursday's column had a new name written in it. The handwriting was Greg's. The ink was dry. She did not ask whose name it was. She did not ask when it had been written. She looked at the dry ink and understood what it meant. She had been replaced before she had been removed. The name had been written before the phone call. The decision had been made before the reason had arrived. She went to her locker. She opened it. Inside was a spare uniform she kept in case the one she wore got stained during a shift. A pair of shoes she wore when her regular pair was drying. Lily's box of colored pencils, the one with 8 pencils in a box meant for 10. She put the pencils in her coat pocket. She put the shoes in a plastic bag from the supply closet. She left the uniform hanging. She unpinned the name tag from her chest. She set it on the shelf above the locker. Ruby M. face up. She did not turn it over. She did not take it with her. She walked out through the employee entrance. The same door she had walked through at 5:20 every morning for 14 months. She did not look back at the building. She had cleaned 2,156 rooms in that hotel. She left carrying what fit in a plastic bag. The hotel did not notice the difference. Vance Rutherford spent the afternoon walking the property. He checked the pool area. He checked the restaurant kitchen. He checked the fitness center, the business lounge, the spa treatment rooms. He took notes on a phone he kept in his breast pocket. Small observations he would compile into a report his operations team would receive by Friday. A scuff on the lobby floor near the concierge desk. A flickering bulb in the second-floor hallway. A housekeeping cart left unattended outside room 314 with a spray bottle sitting on top of the folded towels instead of inside the cart where protocol required it to be. He noticed things. That was his talent. He noticed the distance between what a property was and what it could be. He noticed inefficiency the way a pianist notices a wrong note, not with anger, with a precise awareness that something was not where it belonged. He walked into the laundry bay at 4:40 inches the afternoon. The second shift crew was sorting linens. The machines were running. The air was warm and humid and smelled like bleach and fabric softener, and the particular dense heat that comes from dryers running at full capacity in an enclosed space. He looked at the row of lockers along the back wall. Above them, a shelf. On the shelf, cleaning supplies, a box of disposable gloves, a stack of scheduling forms, and a name tag. It was sitting face up on the shelf, the way someone sets something down when they are not coming back for it. He picked it up. Ruby M. The name did not register immediately, not as memory, as something else. Something closer to the feeling you get when a sound from a room you have not entered in years reaches you through a closed door, not the sound itself. The knowledge that you have heard it before. He turned to the nearest worker, a woman folding sheets at the long table. Who is Ruby M? The woman did not look up from the sheet she was folding. She got let go this morning. Why? Now the woman looked up. She looked at Vance, the way employees look at strangers who ask questions they are not sure they should answer. She looked at his suit. She looked at his shoes. She decided he was someone whose questions required answers. Her little girl was in the ER last night. She called in, asked for a half day. Greg fired her when she showed up. Vance looked at the name tag in his hand. Ruby M. He read it again. The letters did not change, but something behind them did. Something shifted the way the ground shifts before you realize what is underneath it. Ruby. He knew that name. Not from a file, not from a report, from a place older than any file he had ever opened. He stood in the laundry bay holding the name tag, and the memory came toward him, the way snow comes toward a windshield. Not all at once, in pieces. A cabin, a wood stove, hands that did not shake, a voice that was calm because calm was not a choice but a practice. Leather gloves on his frozen fingers. The initials on the wrist strap he had seen 100 times in his desk drawer, without once asking himself whose they were. Ruby. He put the name tag in his breast pocket. He walked out of the laundry bay. He did not ask the woman any more questions. He did not need to. The name was enough. The name was everything. He took the stairs to the second floor. He walked to the shift manager's office behind the laundry room. The door was closed. He opened it. Greg Tanner was not inside. Vance sat down in Greg's chair. He did not wait for permission because he owned the chair, and the desk, and the room, and the building, and every towel and sheet and bottle of soap inside it. He opened the filing cabinet beside the desk. Employee files. Alphabetical. He found the M section. Montgomery, Ruby A. He opened the file. Employee photo. A woman with light brown hair pulled back. No makeup. Tired eyes that were not sad. They were the eyes of someone who had stopped wasting energy on expressions that did not solve problems. He looked at the photo, and he saw the cabin. He saw fire. He saw hands wrapping a torn bedsheet around his shoulder. He saw a bowl of canned beans heated on a wood stove. He saw a woman sitting across from him on the second night, the night he had asked her if she rescued strangers often, and she had said, "You're the first stranger. Usually, it's just deer," and she had smiled. He remembered the smile. It was the first time in years he had heard someone laugh in a way that was not trying to sell him something. He took out his phone. He called his assistant in Denver. My desk, second drawer on the left. There is a pair of brown leather gloves. The left one has initials on the inside of the wrist strap. F. M. Can you confirm? He waited. His assistant put the phone down. He heard a drawer open. He heard the sound of leather being turned over. His assistant came back. F. M. Yes. Stamped on the inside of the left strap. F. M. Frank Montgomery, Ruby's father. The man whose gloves had kept Vance's fingers from turning black on a snowmobile ride through a blizzard 6 years ago. The man whose daughter was now in a personnel file in a cabinet in a hotel Vance owned, listed as terminated for 23 minutes of tardiness in 14 months of employment. He looked at the file again. Previous address. County Road 12. Current address. A studio apartment. $875 per month. Dependents. 1. Lily Montgomery. Age 4. Emergency contact. None. He read that line twice. Emergency contact. None. Not because he did not understand it, because he understood exactly what it meant. It meant there was no one to call. It meant if something happened to Ruby, there was no number on a form anywhere in the world that connected her to another human being who would come. It meant she was carrying everything alone, and the file knew it, and no one who had read the file before him had thought to ask what that felt like. He had built 27 resorts. He could not name a single housekeeper in any of them. He was looking at the file of one now. She had saved his life with her bare hands in a blizzard, and he had repaid her by not remembering her name. Greg Tanner walked into his office at 5:15. He saw a man sitting in his chair. He did not recognize the man. He had never met the owner of the company he worked for. He had seen the photo in the break room. He had not looked at it closely enough to match it to the face sitting behind his desk. "Can I help you?" Vance did not stand up. He did not introduce himself. He did not explain why he was in the chair, or how he had gotten into the office, or what he had been reading for the past 30 minutes. He said one sentence. "The housekeeper you terminated this morning. Walk me through the decision." Greg blinked. Then he straightened. He shifted into the posture of a man who has been asked to justify something he has already justified to himself. He said the words, "Pattern of unreliability. 3 documented instances of tardiness. Consistent application of attendance policy." He said the words the way he had been trained to say them, smooth, practiced. The language of human resources deployed as armor. Vance listened. He did not interrupt. When Greg finished, Vance turned the scheduling board on the wall so it faced Greg directly. He pointed to Thursday's column. The new name. The dry ink. "When did you write this name on the schedule?" Greg did not answer. "Before or after the phone call this morning?" Greg did not answer again. The silence in the room was not empty. It was full. It was full of the sound a man makes when the distance between what he did and what he said he did becomes visible to someone who can tell the difference. Vance looked at him for 4 seconds. He did not raise his voice. He did not change his posture. He said, "You replaced her before she gave you a reason to fire her. That is not policy. That is something else." He closed Ruby's file. He placed it on the desk. "Your access card will be deactivated in 15 minutes. Leave the building through the employee entrance." Greg opened his mouth. He closed it. He picked up his coat from the back of the door. He picked up his coffee cup from the desk. It was from the cafe in the hotel lobby. The receipt was still on the cup. $6.75 for a large oat milk latte. Ruby had not eaten in the employee cafeteria for 14 months because $4.50 was more than she could afford to spend on a meal. Her manager had spent $6.75 on coffee every morning in the lobby of the building she cleaned. Vance did not comment on the cup. The script does not need to comment on the cup. The numbers speak. They always do. Vance called Ruby at 6:40 that evening. She did not pick up. He was not surprised. He called again. She did not pick up again. She did not answer numbers she did not recognize. She had learned this the way she had learned everything in the last 4 years, through the slow education of disappointment. Unknown numbers meant creditors. Unknown numbers meant property management companies. Unknown numbers meant people who wanted something from her that she did not have to give. He sent a text message. "This is Vance Rutherford. I own the hotel you were fired from this morning. I would like to talk." She called back 7 minutes later. She did not say hello. She did not say thank you. She said, "How did you get my number? Your employee file." Silence. Then, "That's the file Greg said didn't exist when I called in this morning." Vance did not respond to that. He did not need to. The sentence had done its own work. He told her Greg Tanner had been terminated. He told her the termination was not related to her case specifically, but to a broader pattern of conduct that had been identified during a property review. He told her this in the language of corporate operations because he did not yet have another language for talking to the woman who had saved his life. He offered her a position, guest experience manager, a role that did not exist yet. He would create it. $52,000 a year, full benefits, health insurance effective on the first day. Ruby was quiet. She was quiet for long enough that Vance checked to see if the call had dropped. It had not. She was deciding, not whether to accept, whether to believe. She had learned that when someone in a suit offered you something you did not ask for, the cost came later. The cost always came later. It came in the form of expectations or conditions, or the slow discovery that the gift was not a gift but a leash with a longer chain. "Why?" she said. He did not tell her about the gloves. Not yet. He did not tell her about the cabin or the blizzard or the 6 years of not going back. He said, "Because 23 minutes of tardiness in 14 months is not a reason to fire someone. And because I should have caught it before it happened. What does a guest experience manager do? I don't know yet. I was hoping you could tell me. She was quiet again. Then she said the thing that changed the trajectory of the conversation, and eventually, the trajectory of the hotel. I don't need a title. I need a place for Lily to be safe while I work. That's what I need. That's what every mother in that building needs. Vance wrote it down, not on his phone. On a piece of paper he found on Greg's desk. He wrote it in handwriting that was not small and even like his mother's, but quick and slanted. The handwriting of a man who had spent 20 years writing numbers and was now writing a sentence. Ruby accepted the position. She started the following Monday. She did not start by reviewing guest satisfaction surveys or redesigning check-in procedures or any of the things the title suggested. She started by walking through every floor of the hotel and stopping at every employee she passed and asking one question. What do you need that nobody has asked you about? She carried a small notebook. She wrote the answers down. The answers were not about salary or vacation days or promotion tracks. The answers were about the 90 minutes before the daycare opened. About the bus route that added 40 minutes to a commute that could be 15 if the schedule were shifted. About the $4.50 cafeteria charge that made employees eat in stairwells and supply closets. About the insurance application that had been pending for 7 weeks because no one in HR had followed up. She wrote it all down. Every answer. Every name. She did not promise solutions. She did not make speeches. She wrote and listened and moved to the next person and wrote again. In the United States, the average annual cost of childcare is $12,500 per child. For families earning below $35,000, that figure represents more than 27% of household income. Employer-sponsored childcare is available at only 6% of American workplaces. Studies show that when on-site childcare is provided, employee turnover decreases by 37%. Absenteeism drops by 20%. Productivity, measured in output per hour, increases by 12%. The numbers are not new. The research is not new. The solution is not new. What is new, every time, is the decision to act on them. Vance approved the construction of an on-site childcare center on the first floor of the Elkhorn Grand. It opened 11 weeks later. It served the children of hotel employees at no cost. Lily was the first child enrolled. She had a cubby with her name on it. She had a full set of colored pencils, 10 inches the box. She had a window that looked out onto the parking lot, which was not scenic, but it was a window, and she could see her mother walk past it every morning at 5:28 on the way to the employee entrance, and her mother could see her looking. Ruby did not transform the hotel. She made visible the people who had always been inside it. On a Thursday evening in December, Vance drove to the Elkhorn Grand. He did not come for a property review. He did not come to inspect the occupancy rate, or the RevPAR, or the net operating income. He came to the first floor, to the child care room. The room was warm. It smelled like crayons, and the particular sweetness of children's shampoo and the carpet cleaner the staff used every evening after the last child was picked up. Lily was sitting at a small table by the window. She was drawing. Vance stood in the doorway and looked at the drawing. It was a cabin. It had a pointed roof and 2 windows and a door. There was smoke coming from a chimney. There were trees around it that looked like green triangles on brown sticks. There was snow on the ground. White crayon pressed hard into the paper. Lily had never seen the cabin on County Road 12. She had never been to the mountains. She had never stood on the porch, where her grandfather had taught her mother to read the weather by watching the tree line. But Ruby told her about it, every night, before sleep. In the dark of the studio apartment that was too small and too expensive and too far from the place where the story had begun. She told Lily about the cabin the way mothers tell children about places they want them to carry inside them, even if they never visit. Not as geography, as identity. Vance recognized the cabin in the drawing. He did not say anything. He handed Ruby a small box. She opened it. Inside were a pair of brown leather gloves, worn at the fingers. The left one had the initials FM on the inside of the wrist strap. Ruby held them. She did not speak for a moment. She turned the left glove over. She read the initials with her thumb. She did not ask how he had them. She did not ask when he had realized who she was. She had known since the text message. She had known the name Rutherford. She had known, and she had not said anything because saying it felt like asking for something, and asking for something felt like the beginning of owing something, and she had spent 4 years learning to survive without owing anyone anything. "These were my father's," she said. "I know," he said. "He would have wanted you to have them back." Ruby looked at the gloves, then at Vance, then at Lily, who was drawing a cabin she had never seen with colored pencils. She finally had a full set of. "He would have wanted them to go to someone who came back," she said. Vance did not respond. He did not need to. The sentence was not for him. It was for the space between them, the space that had been 6 years wide and was now the width of a doorway. He started coming on Saturdays. He did not announce it. He did not schedule it. He drove himself. He wore jeans he had bought at a hardware store because he did not own jeans and had not owned them since his 20s. He read books to Lily in the childcare room while Ruby worked. He fixed the dripping faucet in the employee break room. It took him 40 minutes because he had not held a wrench for anything other than tightening a fixture in his penthouse bathroom in 15 years. He was not good at it, but he did it. And the doing was the thing that mattered. The doing was the language his hands had forgotten and were now remembering. He had built 27 resorts. He had never built anything someone could call home. He was learning. Vance was sitting in the hallway on the first floor near the childcare room on a Saturday in January. The door was open. Inside, Lily was singing, not a song with words, a melody she had made up, the kind children invent when they are not performing for anyone and do not know they are being heard. Ruby walked past him carrying a small notebook. She did not stop. She did not need to stop. He was there. She knew. That was enough. On a hook inside the childcare room, beside the cubbies and the coat rack and the box of crayons, hung a pair of brown leather gloves. The children could see them. None of them knew the story. None of them knew that those gloves had crossed a blizzard on the hands of a woman who pulled a stranger from a ditch, or that the stranger had kept them in a drawer for 6 years, or that the woman's daughter was sitting 3 feet away, drawing a cabin she had never visited. The gloves just hung there. Ordinary, present, the way things stay when someone decides not to let them go. One of them built resorts. The other cleaned rooms. The industry celebrated the resorts. Nobody celebrated the rooms. But the rooms were where people slept. The rooms were where they were safe. The rooms were where a child could close her eyes and trust that the surface beneath her would still be there in the morning. Think about that. The next time you check into a hotel and someone has already made the bed. In the United States, there are approximately 2.2 million hotel housekeepers. The average annual income is $28,950. Most do not receive employer-sponsored health insurance. Most do not have access to affordable childcare. Most are women. Most are mothers. Most of them walked past you in a hallway this morning, or last week, or last year, and you did not learn their name. Not because you were cruel, because the system was built so you would not have to. I wrote this story because I once stayed at a hotel in Colorado and saw a woman in a housekeeping uniform carrying a toddler on her hip at 6 inches the morning in the service corridor. I walked past her. I did not stop. I did not ask her name. I did not wonder how she got there, or where the child would go while she worked, or what the math looked like at the end of her month. I walked to my room, which she had already cleaned, and I put my bags on a bed she had already made, and I did not think about her again until I started writing this. There is someone cleaning a room right now in a hotel you have stayed in. You did not learn her name. That is not cruelty. That is habit. Habits can change. If this story made you see someone you usually walk past, send it to them. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. See you in the next one. This is a fictional story. The characters and events are entirely imagined. None of this happened. But all of it is happening. In every hotel, in every city, right now. If you want to do more than listen, organizations like the National Domestic Workers Alliance, One Fair Wage, and your local worker advocacy centers are doing the structural work that stories can only point toward. Look them up. Show up. Tip in cash. Learn a name.